Today we're taking a look at a blue-black ink by Pelikan, a part of their Edelstein series, Tanzanite. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you if you could check out the entire video. There is a link to a playlist down in the description for blue-black inks if you like blue-blacks and want to see some more of it. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. Now, we do the first writing samples on the same paper, Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia. Let's take a look at the first one, 90 GSM, Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, nice shading spots going on. Look at the word Tanzanite. Lighter to darker to lighter to darker to light. Super nice. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, great shading. Brown goes darker to lighter. Fox is a very dark word. Quick goes dark to light to dark. 3 seconds to dry. The extra fine is the same tone as the medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, not bad shading at all, where you see quick go dark to light to dark. Fox is very dark. Jumps starts as a mid-tone and then gets dark. 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show color variation, not nearly as much in the medium, but we didn't have nearly as much in the medium. Good on the extra fine. The smear test for both show if you smeared while you were writing, you could recover it. I'm going to probably butcher my lines the whole time through this video. In order to have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with this Jinhao 159 with a 1.1, this Jinhao X7... That's right, screwing it up, and I'm leaving this one in. This is going to be a bad, tough review. The Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, the Jinhao X450 with a medium, and the Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Nailed it. Then, a Hero 7035 with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Now, let's take a look at the second standard paper, 52 GSM, Tomoe River. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, nice shading going on, as you see Tanzanite, starting darker, getting lighter, and getting darker again. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, pretty good shading, where you see quick starts dark, gets light, gets dark, brown goes from dark to light, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. No real shading here, only a couple light spots. 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show some color variation, not too much in the medium, but we've gotten almost nothing really there. The smear test, I think you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita that there's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And frequently with blue blacks, we see the blue at the bottom pushing its way up, and see this distinct black line at the top. But this one's reversed. We see the darker, blacker, very green leaning line at the bottom that's pushing up, and then we get the blue up above that. Now the one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked in the water. And look at those two lines that were put down. The one on the right is much darker, but not much different in the rest of the chromatography. I really do expect some of that darker black to be a holdout color in some way. The last standard paper is 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, spots of shading like you see on the ED of Edelstein's, a little lighter than the rest of the word. The ANI of Tanzanite is a bit lighter than the rest of the word. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading shows better. The is very dark, where quick goes dark to light to dark. Brown goes dark to light. 3 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no real shading here, 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both don't show much color variation, though we're getting it in the extra fine, and the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles itself super well. I would have no problems using this ink in a note-taking situation if I needed to go back and highlight. Now, the water and the pen flush did touch, but let's look at the two separate areas because that's largely how they performed. The bottom area of that whole thing is the water, where it's just lifting and dulling the darkest tones, but there's a lot that is left. The pen flush is removing a ton more than the water, but nowhere near getting rid of it. 1/3 bleach solution, while it's getting it completely off the paper, is discoloring the paper. But there's good news, because it only took water to get this out of my pen. For the additional writing samples, different papers are used to have extended experience. And this next paper is Fabriano Eco Qua. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a tad lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. There's no real shading, but there are darker moments, like the looks darker than over. The P in jumps looks a bit darker than the rest of the word. 4 seconds to dry, but this is a more absorbent paper. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine. No feather spread, halo sheen, a little bit better shading. Brown starts a little darker, gets a little lighter. Quick goes from darker to mid-tone to dark, 6 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both far left to far right shows there's tone variation, but it's from like a dark to super dark in both cases, which is really what's happening. And the smear test says you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Pelikan Edelstein Tanzanite has a viscosity of 1.86, making this a wet ink. If you're interested in how all that viscosity stuff's done, there's a link to that video down in the description. Now, let's take a look at the next writing sample done on a composition notebook like you would have used in your science lab class. The only bleed spot that's going on is at the scrubby, which isn't really a problem. Other than that, we have really no bleeding and no ghosting. The medium has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the medium with no feather spread, halo sheen. There's a couple shade spots just to point out. The K and the Q in quick are darker than the rest of the word. The is much darker than the word over. 1 second to dry. The scrubby far left to far right does show some tone variation from a dark to very dark, which is kind of what's happening. And the smear test, you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Pelikan Edelstein Tanzanite has an average dry time of 6 seconds, making this a very fast-drying ink. The last writing sample is done on 28-pound premium copy paper. The only bleed spot we see is at the scrubby, so not such a big deal. No bleeding and no ghosting otherwise. That medium has tiny feathering all over it, but not the kind of feathering that would stop people from using this ink. It's got no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a tad bit lighter than the medium. There is tiny feathering. It really just gives it a slight blurry, like the cross of the T and the K in quick, but not what would stop somebody from using this ink on this paper. No spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation, which we don't get. And a smear test, you could definitely recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Pelikan Edelstein's Tanzanite, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went for a nice green by Bookbinders, Emerald Boa Snake. Now, if you wouldn't prefer a green, you want a different color, down in the description are links to different color playlists. So what do I think of Pelikan Edelstein's Tanzanite? This is nice shading, and I really do like it. It's not too dark, and just a bit blue. I like the blue-black, so I am definitely biased. Or am I extra critical? I'm not sure. Whatever. I like it. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? In general, I tend to like this out of almost every pen. Now that's almost every pen, because I found that really wet fines and extra fines were too dark for what I would prefer, and they really ate up the shading that this ink had to offer. I hope you got something out of this video, and tomorrow we're going to take a look at Iroshizuku's Murasaki Shikabue.